Welcome to Old Fashioned Finance, the podcast that mixes cocktails and high finance. I'm your host, Caleb Frankert, and I'm joined by my good friend and fellow money muddler, Jason Burnell.
Caleb, can a podcast about finance be entertaining?
Not without alcohol.
All right, let's mix it up.
Jason.
Yay.
Here we are, recording a podcast.
Here we are. Snowy. We got snow everywhere.
Yeah, it's...
Finally.
Yeah, I mean...
It's winter.
It feels like winter today. We've got probably 5 or 6 inches on the ground at this point.
Nice, wet snowman.
Good snowball
snow.
fight weather.
Yeah. Yep.
It's really peaceful looking out the windows and seeing the snow.
It is, yeah. I mean, all those kids are at home, and we're like, I'm going to the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not a good
Got to
thing.
get to the office before I can't drive.
Although, I mean, really,
Snowed
it wasn't bad this morning.
Snowed into the office. Ah, shoot. I hope you brought your sleeping bag.
That's what it feels like.
Gosh. Where else would you rather be but recording a podcast with me?
I know. Here I am with you.
I mean, I can think of 7 other places right now. Anyway, Jason, it is. So I think, like we talked about earlier, for those of you who listen to the podcast,
thank you.
You're probably listening right now. For those of you who don't listen to the podcast, you're not going to hear this. Anyway.
Bad jokes.
They're usually we try to have a rhyme or a reason.
Yeah,
method
definitely.
to the madness when we come up with a cocktail on a finance topic.
Yep.
And I feel like so far the series that we've had this year, we've been really good about staying on point. And so this cocktail that we have here, this crazy looking cocktail,
this radioactive waste.
there is a reason. Okay, there's a reason for it, and we'll get into that when we get into the ingredients.
Very minty.
There's a reason behind this one. So it is the audio version of the podcast is released on February 1st.
Yes.
And that's Black History Month, Jason. Did you know that?
I did, actually.
Thank
you, Google.
I think it might be Women's History Month, too, or something like
know.
that. I don't know. But anyway, I thought we could showcase
famous guy, right?
A famous African-American bartender, Tom Bullock. So what
we're
drinking today...
Do we have his cocktail book laying around? We really need to get that.
I looked. I'm not familiar with this one. I am familiar with some of the recipes and some of the cocktails with Mr. Bullock's name on it. But we're drinking Tom Bullock's Stinger today.
Ooh, Stinger.
Okay. And Tom Bullock was a bartender in the pre-Prohibition era.
Oh, so this is like old-timey.
This is old-timey. This is real old-timey. Yeah, this is like pre-Civil or post-Civil War, pre-Prohibition in that era. So,
wow.
Born in 1872, died in 1964. Was the son of a slave.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
when was he born?
1872.
Dang, he was almost 100 years old. Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah, I guess I just did. Yeah. No, he lived a good life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he lived a long life.
Good job, buddy.
Cheers. But actually, one of his claims to fame, other than having some recipes that are attributed to him, he's the first known African-American bartender to publish a cocktail book.
Oh, wow.
Called The Ideal Bartender.
Interesting.
So we might draw on that a little bit more this month,
Yeah, because
I think.
I mean, I actually really like the simple cocktail.
I do too, and most of these pre-Prohibition cocktails
Yeah.
are a little bit more simple in nature, just because of we didn't have access to. Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know the history, but I'm looking at like the Luxardo,
the Gallianos,
maraschino liqueur, the Benedictine. Although these
the
claim to
Carpano.
be pretty old. No, you're thinking Campari.
Campari,
good.
yeah. Whoops.
But actually, I think that we're shooting ourselves in the foot naming some of these off, because now that I think about it, these are pretty old mixers too.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm assuming they were imported.
But like the elderberry liqueurs and all the crazy
This is pretty straightforward. This recipe,
very.
Yeah.
This one's 2 ingredients, which is right up our alley. We're simple guys.
We can usually handle that, even though you screwed it up.
So speaking of the 2 ingredients, Jason, and you can see my screw up here. What do you think one of them is?
Well, it's definitely cream de menthe. Dement? Oh, this is so much controversy. Again, here we go again.
Yeah.
Okay, cream de menthe. It's minty.
We're going to go with that. Cream de menthe.
So not Listerine, cream de menthe. Got it.
Yeah, so that's one of
Got
the
that
2
one covered.
ingredients. The other is brandy.
Love it.
Yeah.
That
Cognac, sorry. This specifies cognac.
Got
now, boys and girls.
Ooh.
All cognac.
Get your chalkboard out.
Yeah, all cognac is brandy, and not all brandy is cognac,
Ooh,
right?
yes.
Just like all bourbon is whiskey, not
That's
all whiskey is bourbon.
Correct.
all
brandy.
Champagne is sparkling wine.
Champagne.
Is sparkling wine, but yeah, champagne. But not all sparkling wines are champagne, right? Okay, so
gosh.
there's that distinction there. So we've got some cognac in here. 1 1/4 ounces of cognac.
Okay.
A half an ounce of creme de menthe. That's all, Jason.
Yeah,
a
but
half an ounce.
it was white.
Yeah. Okay,
Creme
so there was
de
my
menthe.
mistake. Well, we only have green creme de menthe here, and I
Oh.
noticed after I mix it up, and I'm like, man, that doesn't look like the drink in the picture. There's just a little bit of green in there, but it really takes over. So
yeah, and we've used this in other drinks.
Yeah.
I think It's a Wonderful Life. Did that have that in it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, that one was very, very green.
The Jen Caruso.
Jen Caruso also. Yeah, what a fun
Jen
gal.
Caruso. What was that reminds me, I don't know, when I hear Jen Caruso, I think of Gina Carano.
No
she
idea.
was a UFC fighter, and then she acts. She was in the Disney Star Wars series. Yeah.
Huh.
She got blackballed for some conservative views.
Oh,
Jen Caruso. Anyway, yeah. So we have used creme de menthe a couple of times here recently.
So a simple cocktail.
Yeah. So
Here we
if
go.
you get the white creme de menthe, you won't have this. You'll have a more a prettier brownish reddish.
It's like Grinch Punch. I think. Yeah.
This looks. It looks goofy, but anyway.
I bet
cheers.
it tastes great. Oh yeah, minty.
It's not overpoweringly minty like the Jen Caruso
but
was.
it's minty brandy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know what though? I get why they use white.
Oh yeah,
I'm having a hard time getting over the green.
that is not very appetizing.
It's just messing with my psychology.
I mean, maybe this is inappropriate, but if you set this down at a birthday party, and a kid comes up and sees this green in the glass, that looks like Kool-Aid, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does your cat like green Jello?
I don't know about the cat, but I sure am enjoying it. Yeah. So there you have it.
I guess
Tom
it was
Bullock
lime
Stinger.
Jello, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Whoops, I screwed that up. That's all right.
Hey, not the first time. Won't be
and
the
not
last.
the only thing. We are on the struggle train today.
We definitely
don't ask us
took
to
a ride
read
on the
anything.
struggle bus. Jason, getting into the finance topic today.
All right. Woo!
We are going to continue with our theme so far that we've had for this new year, New Year's resolutions that you can keep.
Yep.
And we've kind of just progressed along so far. We talked about budgeting. We talked about emergency savings. We've talked about how to actually go about your savings with a purpose.
Yep.
We've done sinking funds. We talked about retirement accounts a little bit
did,
last week. I think the title of the episode was Tuning Up Your Retirement Savings, right?
Exactly. And I think that was like a general understanding of retirement accounts, because now this has to like build in another layer.
This is going to be a deeper dive.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you do, this is a question I think when you ponder at the snow and think about the
looking out the window,
window,
white snow.
You're kind of thinking, am I doing enough? Like, is it like,
we get that question a lot, Jason.
A lot. And
that's the title of this week's episode.
It is.
Is it enough?
Is it enough?
Okay, so we're not going to ponder
We're getting like real deep now.
Yeah, this is not an existential exercise, and we're just not going there.
We're not. But I think, again, a common mistake with isn't enough is like, it's a mathematical formula. You solve it. There's an answer. And so
Give me my magic number.
Yeah.
What was the...
was
it ING? Remember, it was ING. Now it's something else.
They had like what was the rabbit?
There was an orange rabbit.
Yeah, orange rabbit.
What's your number? I think it was What's Your Number was their marketing campaign.
Yeah.
It's that idea, right?
Yeah, or the Fidelity, like get on that green line they always showed in their commercials. Like,
Some pretty good marketing.
It is good marketing. But again, I think it's the assumption that you're going to, like, there's an exact correct answer.
If my age and my situation, just give me the number, and if I know what to shoot for, I can save that, and I'll be okay, right?
Right, exactly.
It's not quite that easy.
No,
not that's easy.
It's not.
There's a methodology behind that, but I think what we're going to dive into a little bit more is some of the practical aspects. We started touching on the 15% rule last week, and I can't remember. We might have hammered on the 15% rule
I think
a
we
little
did.
bit.
Yeah, because again, that is it's very behaviorally based.
Yeah.
It's good. So, yeah, so we did.
We're going to get into some of the methodology, why that makes sense in this episode.
Sure.
Some of the other, I would say, supporting theories or supporting methodology that's out there, and just why it makes so much dang sense. But before we get into all of that, Jason, you know me. When I have a chance to throw stats and stuff out there, I'm all over it because...
Well, and, you know, it's funny because I have clients ask, like, you know, like, how do I rank? Like,
how am I doing?
How am I doing? Like,
is it enough?
Compared to people of my age, am I on track? Yeah. And that is a really rough question for an advisor. So, I mean, most of the time it depends on what your goal is, right?
It depends on a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that the basis of that question is flawed too, right? And I have it kind of listed on here, you know, what's normal?
Yeah.
Well, okay, first let's determine what's normal. And then we got to talk about is normal enough?
How in the world can two really weird guys determine what normal is?
It's been a while since I've known normal. But yeah, I think there's comfort in knowing that, oh, well, I'm like my peers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if everyone's right, then I'm doing okay. If everyone's wrong, we're all sinking on the same ship.
Right.
But I think that's what we got to determine. What's normal, and then is normal really what we're shooting for? And we know that a lot of people can make it under normal, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
But let's get into some of this because I think it's really fun. It's interesting, Jason.
Okay.
So I'm going to kind of throw some things out there, and then you tell me what you think. I think a lot of times people want to know, all right, so what's the average, 35-year-old? I'm 37. What's the average person my age?
I'm rounded down. I'm feeling young.
What's the average person my age have in retirement accounts? Jason, what do you think? Under 35. We're going to break this up.
Under 35?
And this all came from a Nerd Wallet article that was just written a couple of days ago, I think. But yeah, the under 35 crowd, this is kind of hard with the average, but we'll touch on medians later too. But
okay.
On average, what do you think the under 35 crowd has in retirement savings?
$11,000.
So you're much closer to the median, actually, which is probably a more accurate, right? Because you have a lot of people that put nothing in there.
Right, exactly.
Then you have some overachievers that really bring the average up. Maybe the sample size isn't great. Under 35, the average is $30,170. The median is $13,000.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about that 35 to 44 crowd? Now these are our folks.
I know.
This is us.
Gosh.
It's our version of the show. This is us, Jason.
We're not going to cry or get sappy on this show.
No, that is not our goal.
78,000.
Okay. It's actually 131, just under 132,000.
Well, is there a median on that one too?
There is. The median is 60,000. So you're pretty close with the medians.
Okay, maybe that's kind of where my head is at here. That's interesting.
45 to 54. What do you think on that age range?
Gosh, so I'm going to try to adjust my thinking here a little bit. 195.
Okay, the average is about 255-ish.
Okay.
With a
close.
Median of $100,000.
Plus or minus a couple hundo.
55 to 64.
That is not how we manage money here.
Plus or minus.
55 to 64.
Yep.
I'm going to say, I don't know, 370.
You're real dang close on that. It's 408 actually.
Okay.
That's the average. Now the median, this is where it starts to get really depressing, I think. Maybe I shouldn't say that. That sounds really judgmental. But what I'm saying is this is where the urgency in my mind is starting to pick up. Okay,
right.
So from 55 to 64, this is where people are in that retirement red zone.
Right.
The median is 134,000. So from 65 to 74, the average is slightly higher. It's 426,000, and then the median is 164.
Ooh.
So
wow.
What does that tell us?
That's shocking, actually. I wouldn't. I mean, I think we've all heard the studies, though. I mean, I know, like, when I first got in the business, it was like the average retiree retires with $100,000 of savings. Yep. I mean, it was real low. And so they were living on Social Security, still probably to this day. I haven't been in this business for, that many decades, but that's hasn't changed much when you look at those numbers.
No.
I mean,
and with those numbers, Jason, really, you look at someone who's got to live off of Social Security, if they're lucky enough to have a pension in the house as well, too. Maybe a spouse has a pension also, or or you've got 2 Social Security checks. But with something like that, we're not thumbing our noses at $100,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But depending on when you retire, for most folks, it's pretty tough to take that $100,000 and then put the pressure of withdrawals on that. That's kind of got to be there for those emergency outside of the box situations.
Yeah, you're going to live on your monthly cash flows, and you're not going to dip into that retirement savings unless you need to do something for like an emergency or a big purchase. I mean, we have clients that do it.
Yeah.
If you're very conservative, but again, I think it's nice to see the difference between median and average there. It's
median's probably a more accurate representation.
Probably. Yeah. I think that's true. I think that's true for sure.
But we talked a little bit about the numbers and what people have in their retirement account. So you're probably, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, where do I rank? Do I feel good about this or not? And this is something that it comes out every year, typically, and the numbers seem to be pretty much in line. I pulled this off of T. Rowe Price's website.
Okay.
They do a lot of 401ks and retirement accounts for folks, employer plans and things like that. So they've published a list of benchmarks based on age. So at age 30, how much do you think you ought to have saved in retirement? Ought to have saved.
Ought to.
Mm-hmm. Not a dollar amount. Okay, so we're going to think about in relation to salary. Sorry. Yeah, percentage of salary.
7%.
Okay, so it's half of your salary saved today, basically. At age 30, whatever your salary is, they're saying you should have half of that in retirement.
Oh, I see.
Like
a percentage of your salary. I see. Okay. Interesting. I didn't answer the question.
I worded
properly.
it kind of funny.
That's all right.
At age 35, 1 to 1.5 times your salary.
That makes sense.
Where it gets tricky is when you're in that age, the 35 to 40, 45 age range, your salary is
going up
more rapidly than it normally would too, right?
This is an interesting way of looking at it.
It's a benchmark, okay? Yeah. And I do think that this is maybe a little more helpful than dollar amounts.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, because everyone can be like, okay, my salary times 2, salary times whatever.
And for some people, $100,000 in retirement they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
For other people,
no
way, no how. Just depending on how much they've made in their career, what kind of spending habits they have.
Absolutely.
At age 40, they recommend 1.5 to 2.5 times. Age 45, 2.5 to 4 times. At age 50, you ought to have 3.5 times to 5.5 times your salary. 55, we're getting into that red zone, 4.5 to 8 times your salary.
Wow.
Age 60, 6 times to 11 times. At age 65, 7 to 13.5 times your salary.
Wow.
Okay. So we're assuming probably retirement at 65.
That's interesting. I would say that correlates back to that 15% rule really well.
It does.
On the high end of these,
So what's fun about this, they're good, helpful benchmarks, maybe. But again, I think that's where we're going to get into the 15% rule and why the 15% rule is not necessarily a mathematical thing, but a behavioral thing.
It really is, yep.
So, okay, I did a couple of, I read a couple of studies. I'm going to try to cite my sources as much as possible. Purdue University, who has a very good CFP program, and pretty widely respected.
Business school,
exactly. Yep. They cite Fidelity's 50-15-5 rule. Are you familiar with the 50-15-5 rule, Jason?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm guessing. Here.
Okay, so this is a very popular methodology on budgeting and saving, right? So 50% of your income should be no more than 50% of your income is fulfilling your daily needs, paying the mortgage, your insurance, all that kind of stuff. The target here, 15%.
That's retirement.
Pre-tax going to retirement, right?
Yep.
So 15% gross. Okay, so there's that number, 15, right? It just crept up. And then they have 5% as you squirrel that away for emergency savings and sinking fund type things.
Interesting.
Okay. So
not a bad concept. I think that's a pretty good concept.
Fidelity's a big company. Help a lot of people retire, right? That is a very, 50, 15, 5, that's easy to remember. Is that an exact equation? No.
I think it's kind of scary, though, like, you go to a bank and you sign up for a mortgage, and they're going to be like, your debt to income allows you to get like a, 33% or something for a mortgage.
They'll take you up to 45%
on a mortgage
debt to income. what else are you going to live on?
Yeah, I mean, so right there, you're basically throwing away any chance of saving for retirement, and the emergency fund thing is probably going to just get eaten up with emergencies.
Yeah.
Okay, because a big house.
That's living check to check. That's probably being house poor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Interesting. That's very fascinating to me.
That 50-15-5, I kind of scoffed at it a little bit when I heard it, and then I read it, looked into it a little bit more.
So why doesn't it add up to 100?
Because life happens. And remember, that 50% is that's your mortgage, that's your insurance, that's your, any other.
But you also have taxes involved in here too, right?
You got taxes involved, but then you've also got entertainment and things that you have to live, right? Yeah, outside of your necessary requirements. So there was an article.
I kind of like that, actually. I think most people could follow that kind of method, you know.
It's great for budgeting, Jason.
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, I'm just going to split this off, and that's all I got.
If you're having trouble putting together a budget and allocating things to different boxes or columns or however you set your budget up, there's a good
We bring home 6,000. I'm going to put 3,000 over here. That's my expenses.
3,000 is what we're going to
live on.
Yeah, to keep the lights on.
Yep.
15% in retirement, 5 in your incidental savings.
I kind of like that.
I do.
I'm not gonna lie. I do like that. Maybe because they use the 15% for retirement thing.
Well, there's some other things that we're gonna find here that do support that 15%. And I say rule, but guideline. Okay, so Charles Schwab. This is an article called "How Much Should You Save?"
Chuck.
And ask Chuck. Someone did ask Chuck. Actually, it was a question from a 30-year-old.
Hey, I didn't know that.
Yeah, basically wanting to know, hey, I've got my first job. I want to get serious about saving. Okay, so
I got a big boy job.
Saving? And they're going basically, they're going to point to, well, when you're starting at 30, here's what you should be looking at. And the importance of this is starting early.
Sure.
What I thought was really, really interesting about this was they base all of their numbers, and it was dependent on when you start, and just showing you that if you start younger, you don't have to save as much, right?
Correct.
Because time being on your side is your best asset. Okay,
Yep.
so. They recommend if you're getting started in your 20s that you should be saving 10 to 15% of your gross, your pre-tax income in retirement accounts. If you're not starting till you're in your 30s, you probably want to amp that up a little bit.
Yep.
15 to 20%, because you've got some catching up to do, right? You've got maybe 10 years of compounding and contributions to make up for. If you're starting in your 40s, 25 to 35%. Okay, so if you're in your 40s and you're just getting started, realize, okay, this should affect your budget. How much house can you afford? All these other things. If you're looking at that 50, 15, 5, there's a lot more of that extra 30, right? That's being gobbled up.
And I think this is like probably one of the most stunning examples of finance that you can teach a young person. So listen, if you are under the age of 20 and happen to be listening to this podcast, have somebody show you the time, the cost of waiting. I know Dave Ramsey has an awesome example of this, which you're probably going to use. But even just understanding present value, future value, the compounding effects, especially when you add a little bit every month. And, I've been seeing save $100 a month from it's just floating all over the internet as a meme almost. You save $100 a month at age 20 till you're 60, and it's some ridiculous number, $1.7 million. And basically the crux of it is time,
start early,
compound the crap out of this. It's really fascinating, and it's something that every person that is working should understand. They need to understand the value of this.
So as we've said, this is not a hard and fast rule, okay? The 15%, it just works out real nice.
Yeah.
But let's put some numbers behind it. Remember when we used to say that? Let's put some math behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love math.
We should say that.
Yeah.
We should do the
we
work
need
that tax code
we need
thing
a giant business calculator that can go behind her head or something.
You're a giant business calculator. So you mentioned
that's
Dave
the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Ramsey Solutions, they did, and they're big proponents of the 15% rule, or
definitely.
the 15% guideline, whatever we want to call it. Okay, I like that we put some math behind it. Now there's some things in here you could debate. Okay, but their idea here was on a 30-year investment time horizon, and we're going to assume an average household income of $70,800. Household income, okay? Wherever your income is, it's okay. This is for illustration purposes.
Yeah,
all right?
You can divide it by whatever or multiply it by whatever based on your income.
And I think what we're going to find here is, well, you might look at some of this and go, well, that's not realistic. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But 15% invested through monthly contributions, 15% of $70,800, that would be $885 a month. Okay. Do you have room for $885 a month? Assuming an annual rate of return of 11%.
Okay. This
compounded.
Is little debatable here. It's a little high.
It's a little high. Okay.
Well, okay, we'll use it.
But this is not a variable in this one,
nope.
right? The 11% in their study or in their layout here remains. So that gives you $2.48 million at the end of 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
Now remember, we're also not assuming raises and things like that. That's $70,800 for the next 30 years, putting 15% away, okay, and getting 11% in compounding.
Right.
But if we drop that to 10%, Jason, that's $590 a month. Maybe a little easier pill to swallow, okay?
Yeah, I can get that done.
Sure. The 11% return, again, we'll debate that, but we're looking at a 30-year number of $1.65 million.
Wow.
Okay, so that's a big difference. 5% would be $295 a month at 11% compounded for 30 years, $827,300.
Wow, that's crazy.
Now, I would say that most people listening would say, if I had $827,000 saved for retirement when I retire, hey, buddy, we're doing good.
Right.
Okay. But again, there's a lot of things that we did not factor into this. Raises, inflation, all that other stuff, right?
Yeah, and if the rate of return for some reason is half, you're half wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like it will make a significant difference in what you're doing here. And I think that's really important to realize in any circumstance. This stuff is just here to help you gauge, am I on track?
Yeah. So, is it enough?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think what we're doing here essentially is we are solidifying why that 15% number works so well.
Yep.
And if the younger you start, the less that you maybe have to put away.
I mean, we are I'm imploring you, listen to that advice.
Yeah.
Okay. It's something you can make more money. Yes. You can out earn your stupidity. Yes. But if you start early and you start with a reasonably small, nest egg, man, it just couple $100 a month is
the sooner you start, the better. And that's why I think this 15% rule is less about the math. I wrote on here, this is actions versus Monte Carlo.
Yeah.
Monte Carlo, I don't mean the cool car from the 80s. I mean...
Or the place in Europe.
The simulation. You sit down with a financial planner, and they're going to plug in $100,000 or 100,000 different retirement scenarios based on good markets, bad markets, average markets, all that kind of stuff. And they're going to say, here's your probability
here's the sequence of
making it, right?
Yep.
Is that the most important thing, or are some of these actions that we can help what we do with our budget, with that, using a 50-15-5 rule or something like that? We can help that. We can't help it if the markets stink for 3 years in a row, right?
Right, exactly.
We can't help that stuff. So, what can you do? Well, you can get up close to that 15% number. At 15%, start funding other goals. Start funding college or kids' education, and all that kind of stuff.
Pay your house off early. Maybe save for the business you want to start. That kind of stuff. And I think that this is always going to be a battle between academic and heart.
Yeah.
Your brain is fighting your heart on this one. And it's kind of a trust the number if you want to work it just to verify it makes sense.
Bingo.
Yeah.
We can do the math to make you feel better.
Yep.
But it's about putting the right actions in place. And no, you might not be able to go and do 15% tomorrow. But if you put little things in place like upping your 401k contributions every year automatically, right? Those are the types of things you can do. The sooner you get there, the better off you're going to be. If you're plugging 15% away in retirement, you're probably going to be okay.
And when you're getting raises, put a little bit of that in there. I think that's important.
Best time to pay yourself in your retirement account.
You're not used to it anyway.
Well, thanks for having a drink with us this week, folks. It is time to close out the tab. If you have a question or a topic you want addressed on the Old Fashioned Finance podcast, be sure to email us at podcast@bluejfg.com. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to share the show with someone you love or just someone who needs a little money muddling themselves. You can stay up to date with the latest action by following us on Facebook. Old Fashioned Finance is brought to you by Blue Jay Financial Group. That's bluejfg.com and produced by Podastery Studios. We've been your hosts, Caleb and Jason. Cheers. Blue Jay Financial Group, LLC. Blue Jay is a registered investment advisor registered with the state of Ohio. Registration does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The presence of this advertisement on this podcast shall not be directly or indirectly interpreted as a solicitation of investment advisory services to persons of another jurisdiction unless otherwise permitted by statute. Follow-up or individualized responses to a consumer in a particular state by Blue Jay and the rendering of personalized investment advice for compensation shall not be made without first complying with jurisdiction requirements or pursuant an applicable state exemption. All verbal and written consent on this presentation is for information purposes only. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Blue Jay unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by our firm as to other parties' informational accuracy or completeness.